gentlemen, it's now the moment you've all been waiting for. Coming to you live from Northern Virginia. It's time for Running the Cage with John Becerra.
Welcome back, everybody, to Running the Cage podcast. I am here with amateur fighter Marc-Ari Lewis. Thank you for coming on, my man.
Thank you for having me, man.
No,
Appreciate it.
Of course. I know you had a little bit of a drive and I had trouble finding here. But no, I appreciate you coming out. And so, talk to me. You had a big year coming up. You have another big fight coming up at December at Cowboy Fight Series 4. But before we get into that, I want to know about Tactical Combat Academy, where you train out of. What got you into MMA? How did you get into the sport?
Life. Like, in Frederick, are you familiar with the Frederick area in Maryland? So a couple of buddies of mine, we went out to a lounge, like a hookah lounge or whatever, and the DJ, he was posting pictures of like the crowd and stuff, and I went on his profile and saw a couple of like pictures of him as a fighter, and I was like, I kind of just winged it when I sent the message. I didn't really like think of anything was gonna really come of it, and like I talked to him, he was like, "Yeah, man, just come on in." I was like, "All right," and I ended up going into the gym. We were out of Frederick Fight Club at the time, but something happened with them where I guess they got disbanded or something like that. So I was out of Hagerstown for a little bit. And my coach now at TCA and PA found me a while back. He found me probably like 4 or 5 years ago via cross training, and just like how it went, I ended up at his gym. He's a very, very down to earth guy, man. That was one of the things that really like sucked me into this gym. Like, he's very humble in a sense where he knows that he's human and he's not the be all in for every fighter or for every person. As a coach, he aims to make us better people before he makes us better fighters. And I guess as I go through that journey myself, I find out that as I meet these different individuals who do fight, you realize that a lot of them are coming from the same kind of like humble backgrounds. Like, they are learning from other people, they're inspired by other people. So you might be inspired by them, but they might be inspired by you or someone else like that might be around you and stuff like that. So it's definitely one of those things, man. I've always loved martial arts and like mainly like cartoon anime, like ninja shows, all that stuff, man.
Even like old like kung fu movies.
Yeah, that you can't understand. It's crazy that I didn't pick up on none of the language, but like I had to read the subtitles and like pay attention to the screen.
It was either subtitles or going straight to the fight scenes.
Yeah, I mean, no. I would actually sit there and watch the whole storyline.
All right, see, I wasn't that patient.
Yeah.
But no, I like how you talk about the relationship within the gym, because I think that's one of the beautiful things about the sport is that there's more to the fighters than what we see, which is just the fight. There's training, meeting people, and hearing about their stories. And I was looking through your page, and you've been training for a while, since like 2012, 2013. Yeah. I was actually even looking at some of your old fights at Cagezilla back in 2013. So talk to me a little bit about the journey.
I would recommend anybody kind of doing this, like who are aspiring to do something, like whether you be an artist, mixed martial artist, some kind of athlete. Look back on your old posts, or look back on things you used to talk about or things you used to think to yourself, and that itself can inspire you along the way, because I've learned that the better you get, the harder it gets. But the mentality should be you're willing to rise to any challenge. Looking back on like some of those old videos that I've had, or even like some of the posts I've made, I was like, yo, who is this guy? Like, you get me? Because, like, you're not, if you're, like, life happens. Time don't stop for nobody. So as you're living your life, like, you start to develop into a different person, a better version of yourself, hopefully a better version of yourself. And to me, looking back should only be, like, just a reference point of either A, what you don't want to go back to, or two, something like when you don't know what you're doing, revert back to the basics and build from there. And that's kind of what it's been for myself. I look back at a lot of my old videos and think to myself, like, yo, I move so much differently now. Like my technical side is completely opposite of where I used to be now. And I'm thinking to myself, like, it was so many factors. There were so many factors that were incorporated into my growth. And I really appreciate everybody who I've met along the way, good or bad, because technically speaking, you learn from everything. So the bad people, I guess, they're good in their own sense. But if they've affected me in a negative way, it taught me who I should stay away from or what I want for myself. Like, for me as a fighter, I feel like I do not want to become that fighter that gets absorbed in limelight, more so putting myself on a pedestal that I cannot like climb down myself, because anybody who's on top only stands from support on the bottom. So it's always a reminder to keep the people who are close to you, people who are helping build not just you but themselves up. It's like, I can't get better without my teammates, and my teammates can't get better without me. So you got to kind of keep that mindset with you. Going to cross train at other gyms, the beauty in that is you are exposed to, and like, that's a humbling experience in itself. You're exposed to so many different other techniques, so many different other styles, different people, different mindsets.
In certain things
Yep.
as well.
Yep. And I can use like Lloyd Irvin Gym, prime example. Like, training with those guys, most of them are pro there, who I've trained with, and I'll just go there and get lit up. I remember the first day I went there and they put on headgear. I said, "Oh, they sparring." I was like, okay. And I took it like a salt grain. I was just like, all right, what did I learn from this? It doesn't mean that I'm not any better than anybody, but it means that, okay, they have exposed gaps in my game, or maybe it's a mental barrier I need to push through, stuff like that, because most fighters know that it's not unless they are fighting out of anger, but it's out of respect. Like, everybody comes from different walk of life, and they are passionate about something is driving them. So when you spar with people, it's kind of like that sharing of energy, and you kind of, when you do share that with somebody else, you gain a little bit of knowledge about who that person is as an individual. That's why I was talking about earlier, like, people who inspire me when I spar with them or when I watch them on, like, via social media. You could look at them and think that they have everything in the bag, and truly they're human. Like, they're going through things, they have to fight their own battles, and being around that or being exposed to it kind of is another humbling experience in itself. Like, it reminds you that you can overcome certain obstacles. And like I said, looking back on those old videos from where I was, a lot of people, when they hit these walls, they'll stop, because there's so much doubt as a fighter, whether they want to talk about it or not. There's so much doubt as a fighter that will come up when you are faced with adversity. And like, I feel like not a lot of people are willing to be, like, vulnerable, in a sense where if you just say that, hey, this is how I feel, it'll be out there and open so you can address it, versus trying to hide it. And then whenever you, like, say myself, if I go down to a gym like Lloyd Irvin's and I get my butt handed to me, then it's gonna be like, why am I still doing this? Like, I'm not good, or nah. But it's not like that for me. So.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think that is the wrong mentality to have, because when you go train at other gyms, you kind of want that experience.
Yeah.
You have to get those humbling moments inside the gym, so when you step into the cage, you're ready for it. And like you said, address some of those holes that you may or may not have. Now, when you talked about movement, that's one of the things I first noticed watching your old fights. And so when I first saw you fight live at CFS 3, that was the first thing that I noticed, was that you were a lot more calm, you were planted, and far more methodical in, like, setting up your strikes and trying to land. because what I didn't see, as opposed to your older fights, was kind of that rush of like, it might have been adrenaline, it might have been emotion, just like you get a good land and then you jump straight to it. So take me back to that fight at CFS 3, because the fight didn't go your way, but you made a post and you talked about what we were talking about earlier, being humble and learning from those adversities. And what did you learn from that fight?
A whole lot of stuff. So, shout out to my opponent, first of all, because Tyler, like, he definitely made me better as a fighter. That entire camp, it was way more mental, like, than it was physical, because you can show up to practice and punch 100 times, kick 100 times, but if you don't, like, I think a lot of fighters, what they do nowadays is, like, you kind of zone out and really put yourself in that cage before you even step in there, so it's not a shock to you or a surprise to you when you get in there. I watched a couple of videos on Tyler, and I'm not really in the pocket kind of fighter, but it's like I will train to have a mindset like, if they do press me or pressure me, what do I do? I'm very hypersensitive towards like the area of the cage. Like for some reason, I just know when the cage is around me, like when it's getting close. Okay. So I do that before we even the day of the fight. Like I'll walk around the cage, see how many steps I have, forward, back, left, right, all that stuff. Wow. For this fight, mentally, the barriers I was trying to push myself through was, if he were to press me, what would I do? Like, because you can't back up forever, you can't run forever. And I was like, engage. That fight, I didn't throw my hands. That's I don't even regret it, to be honest with you, because in the fight, you're not really thinking, you're just doing. So if my instincts were not to throw because I felt threatened or I felt something was coming, I didn't do it. In that fight, Tyler did not do what, just like I said earlier, you can get so wrapped up in watching people's videos and you forget that you are just like them and they are just like you. They're training to be better than they were. So you can focus on those old videos if you want to, but it really won't do anything for you in the future. The only thing I could say you could take from those would be their habits, like that they do. So their technique might be very different, but there are certain habits. Certain fighters are pressure fighters. Certain fighters are like they can fight off their back foot. Certain fighters just want to go to the ground. So you can pick up on certain habits like that and kind of work your game plan around it. With Tyler, when we fought, he did not press forward like I was expecting him to. So I was like, all right, game plan out the window. I was like, now what do I do? So I had to I was trying to bait him into coming forward so I could counter. And I guess I was getting off that not really cage rust, but I haven't fought pro rules in like years. Like, because I was used to fighting in PA with the shin guards, which, in my opinion, shin guards give you a false sense of security because people would just kick anywhere. But nah. Okay. If you don't kick properly without the shin guards, you're gonna hit bone on bone, or you're gonna get injured unnecessarily. So angles are everything. But my coach kind of yelled out to me. I'm not gonna say what he said because it's probably bad for the camera. But like, he was just basically telling me to throw. So I threw a couple jabs out there, and literally, like, I saw him throw like a looping, say just an example, like a looping hook over my jab. In my mind, I'm saying, okay, when he does this, what do I need to do? Now, I practiced all these different moves, all these different techniques, but some of them, since I said, like, I didn't do them before, your kind of like primitive side will come out. So whatever you're used to, you're gonna revert back to it. So I did not do the things that I practiced doing in the fight until, like, my coach had to break me out of it. He told me to start throw some kicks. So I threw my first kick, and I just remember feeling the pressure of shin bone on bone. And I was just like, all right, that wasn't that bad. And I just started laying into some kicks. And there was one part of the fight where Tyler caught me with this hook over my jab. And, like, he didn't know it. I told him after the fight, but he didn't know it. But I literally couldn't see anything from here on out. But I was just like, this is the mental part. I tell you, like, you kind of prepare yourself before the fight. I told myself, if anything happens or if I get tired, buckle up. Well, that was the time to buckle up. I couldn't see nothing. I was like, he don't know that. I was like, all right, I'm gonna stand right here, chin down, hands up, and like either like throw some fakes out there, make him move, or make him have to change what he's gonna do. And I don't know, like out of this side of my eyes, I saw him make a motion to kind of like do, I don't know, I just saw him advancing towards me, and it ended up being like a jumping knee, and I just sidestepped it, and in my mind I was like, yo, that was cool. but like things that I did take away from this fight was to capitalize, man. Capitalizing, a lot of fighters, they either excel or fail by either capitalizing or not capitalizing. Off the clinch, Tyler's very strong in the clinch. I had to do a lot of very technical things. It might not seem very big, but it stopped me from getting like hurt or injured more than I needed to be. Like certain things like inside ties or putting your thumb in the crease of their elbow so they can't pick their arm up.
Just those little things.
Mm-hmm. Oh. And yeah, man, the reason why I took it the way I did after the fight was Tyler brought out of me like this, even talking to a couple of other guys that from my bracket as well, the Jason, he's actually fighting Tyler for the 170 belt.
And their 4-man tournament.
Yep. And like talking with these guys, man, like, or just being in the cage with them, it made me realize a lot about myself and a lot about the fight community. Like, for example, walking out to the cage, I remember thinking to myself, like, yeah, I feel like I was at peace. Like, I said, everybody's here to watch us, not just me, but like a us thing, like, because the fighters, myself included, like, we sacrificed so much leading up to that. So whether it be 2 months out or a month out, it's just so much that goes on for that one night. And I was like, one thing I'm thinking to myself, like, you did all that work just to come here and not want to do it? Or you did all that work just to come here and be afraid of doing what you know how to do? I'm like, yo, like, all there is to do is you put in your work, you show up, and you put it on the line. Like, I told myself a long time ago to cut out that crowd hype, cut out the, it sounds very weird, like the crowd does support the fighters as far as coming out, buying tickets and stuff like that. But I try not to let my mind get absorbed with it, because then you're always thinking about who you look, exactly.
For them, as opposed to sticking to yourself and your game plan. I really like how open you are, because that's a big thing. Each fight is different, and you never know exactly what's going to happen in the fight once the bell rings. So you can prepare and prep for certain situations and stuff, but you never fully know what's happening until you actually step in there. But like you said, you get hit with that right hand, or you don't know what happened, but you got to keep to yourself and keep going. One thing I really like and that I encourage fighters to do is to stay active. And that's what you did immediately after that fight. I think it was like a month after, a couple weeks, you immediately signed up for your first Muay Thai bout?
First Muay Thai,
First Muay Thai bout at Cowboy Fight Night, their first Muay Thai event. So, talk to me about that.
Like you said, like I just kind of hopped on that, like immediately after the fight. I don't know really what I was thinking. I'm the kind of person, I like to jump before I look sometimes, and I really thought to myself after fighting with Tyler, it kind of fired me up in a sense. Like, one, I was getting ready for becoming a pro fighter. So after the December card, I plan on going pro. Wow. And it's just like the mindset that I was trying to make myself have versus growing into it. Like, I'm like, I don't have to make myself have that mindset. I've told people before when they ask me, like, when are you going pro? Or I was like, man, when I know, I'll know. Because you can rush a good thing, and then that good thing turns bad real quick. So I believe experience is one big part of being able to pass that threshold and become a good pro fighter. Not in the sense you just go pro just to say I'm a pro fighter, but being able to be a contender, like you're a force to be reckoned with type deal. So that fight after Tyler, I only took like the most damage I took was in my legs.
From the shin on shin.
Yeah. And like hurt my foot as well. But I told myself going in this fight, one thing, my opponent, oh my goodness. First of all, he's an awesome dude, a real down to earth guy. But first thing I noticed when I saw him, I was like, yo, this guy is tall as hell, man. Like, he didn't look it until I stood in front of him, and then I saw a picture of him. I was like, I'm pretty sure this guy is really tall. Like, And we took our like fight pictures, and he put his hands up, and I was like, yo, he's gonna extendo clip me across this cage. One of my buddies fought a guy that was similarly as tall as my opponent was, and he said, yo, when he threw a jab at me, I know I backed up across the cage, but I don't know, like his hand just kept coming. I was just like, well, and one of my cornermen, Will Gunnett, it was actually awesome. Like, this is what I talk about, the sharing of energies. Like, the way how he spars me, he's a shorter fighter. He's always on the inside.
Okay.
So he's always engaging. And that literally was my game plan for the entire fight. I was like, I have to engage him. I cannot stay on the outside of this guy. Like, if I stay on the outside, I'm going to get, like, lit up or be at the mercy of his length. So going into this fight, I'm not going to lie to you, literally like the last 5 to 3 minutes before walking out, my buddy Dirk was like, he said, you good, bro? I said, hell no, I ain't good, man. I was like, because this nerve started just kicking out of nowhere. It's just like, if you allow that negative like mindset to control you, if you don't kick it out of your mentality like real quick, it'll like absorb. You'll start thinking about everything that could go wrong, everything that did go wrong. You'll start feeling like you didn't prepare for this fight. I knew I was prepared. I knew I was ready. I knew I was capable. It's just like I don't know, like that's just something you don't want to have as a party, like going out there. I told myself, I said, hey, I'm here to war. I said, I'm ready. I asked God to like kind of give me this, like allow me to break past this barrier. And like I said, because I am planning on going pro after December's fight card, and I was like, allow me to pass this barrier. And fighting is all about that, like pushing your limits, testing yourself against whoever and whatever, like even in life in general, like you have to be able and willing to fight past certain things. But yeah, Muay Thai fight, man, it was an experience I can't really explain. Like, I love to do it again, though.
Talk to me a little bit about the difference between Muay Thai events and MMA events, because it was completely different. It was very, very cultural and not the typical MMA crowd where you're
kick him in the face like that.
No, you get more oi.
Yeah. It's very different from the traditional kick him in the face, guys yell knock him out. Like, that's what we're trying to do. But you get me? But like the crowd is a part of. You feel like they're a part of the fight, and they play the Thai music in the background, and it's just, I don't know. It is kind of like methodical and technical of how you do strike each other and how you do fight each other, versus MMA is kind of just like you're just going until somebody either get tired or somebody get clinched, taken to the ground, whatever.
I want to talk a little bit about, because previously you just said at the end of the day it's a fight and it's war.
Yes, sir.
Now talk to me about your persona, War Child the Brute, and the whole story behind WarForever and your nickname, the War Child, as well.
So, War Child is actually a name of a song that I heard a while back, like probably like when I was in high school. The song to me, it kind of presented itself to me in a way like I could connect with it, feeling like in life we all go through a lot of things that we may not talk about and that we fight through, whether somebody sees it or not. And I felt like I've been fighting a lot of stuff since I was a child. So War Child is kind of just like an empowering name to myself. It's not necessarily to look cool or to sound cool. And I try to not live up to it because it doesn't have a standard. Like when I decided that was the name I wanted for myself, it's kind of like I get to choose who War Child is and what War Child the Brute means to me. The whole brute aspect of it is I try to like motivate a lot of people around me, because I know what it feels like to feel like you can't do something or feel like you're nervous or you doubt yourself. And being a brute to me is just literally what it means, be a brute. Like, if you can't do something the right way, hey, just be a brute and get it done. Like, I don't know, like raw strength, raw power doesn't have to be all technical, because sometimes if you're not able to do something, if you like Rock Lee, that's what I love. So, all right, prime example. if I can't do 500 push-ups, I will do 10,000 squats, like stuff like that. Like you're just always finding a way to push through these barriers of yourself. So that's what the brute aspect of the name is. And WarForever, I came about that like actually kind of just recently, probably like last year. And to me, that just is like a testament to self. There are going to be many obstacles that I'm going to continue to face in life, and all is fair in love and war. So what you love, you will continue to war for. And there are people who look up to me that I've realized along the way, and whether they know what I go through or not, like I kind of hold that responsibility within myself. Like I can't afford to give up on myself because there are people somewhere who might need to see me in a light that I don't see myself, so they can be motivated to want to do something that they either thought they couldn't do, or something that they want to do and they were told they couldn't do it, or that they just don't have the motivation to even try and do it. So as I'm learning who I am as a fighter, I'm trying to push that off onto like anybody who I'm around, and it's empowering, yes, but I don't feel like it's necessarily for myself, because it's kind of like a give and take. Like I said, you could feel like you're inspired by somebody else, but they're inspired by you, and vice versa. Like I feel like I'm inspired by the kids I used to work with at the Boys and Girls Club, to like people my age, to my coach, like my peers at the gym, because they're training for their own reasons. And I just feel like I cannot afford to give up on myself, because there's too many people in my life who I needed, and I watched them suffer through some things, and I watched them also overcome those things, and then I wish to give that back to people who are around me. So whether I win or lose, and this is for the camera, whichever camera I gotta look at, whether I win or lose, I'm coming to test myself every time, and I'm bringing the war with me. So WarForever is just that. Like we war for what we love, and I love to find out what I'm warring for. So it is what it is, man.
That was beautiful, man. One thing I do want to ask, because I read some of your poetry online on some of your posts, and I know a lot of fighters, they view fighting as a form of self-expression. Do you fall in that same boat as well?
Yes, very, very much so. Just you don't really know much about yourself until you put yourself to the test in any aspect. And I believe it was John Bang Riley I heard this from, like, fighting is kind of like just poetry in motion. As you fight, things might not go as you planned it to go, but you kind of discover new things as you go through these adversities, or you hit these mental barriers or physical barriers, versus an opponent who either outclasses you, outstrengths you, or is just better at you in a certain aspect. So it's definitely one of those things. Like, poetry can be beautiful and chaotic, because most things you read, or like deep poems that you read, you might not understand what the writer had intended to write or intended to mean, but you might interpret it very differently. So me as a fighter now, I don't fight with the purpose of trying to look like something. I'm just myself. I'm just being. So however I grow is up to me, and because I'm just learning as I go, so to speak, and hopefully that will shine in a good light to those who watch me or who are around me and stuff like that.
Absolutely. Poetry has been like a form of literature that's the best way to like convey emotion, passion, and feeling just within writing. And I feel the same could be said through action and fighting.
Definitely, definitely.
Now, I just want to thank you for stopping by, man.
No problem, man. I appreciate you guys for having me.
No,
man.
Of course. Thanks for stopping by. Let people know where they can find you online. You had the upcoming fight in December as well. Yeah. I want to wish you also a safe camp. And when you turn pro, man, come back onto the show.
All right,
let people know where they can find you.
You can find me on Instagram mostly, War Child the Brute. So WAR Child, CHILD THEBRUTE. I had to think about how to spell that real quick. So
it'll be at the bottom as
well. Yeah, if you want to reach out to me, man, shoot me a message, anything like that. If you want to hear a little bit about myself, or you need advice on something, like, just feel free to shoot me a message or whatever like that. Cowboy Fight Series 4, December 21st. I'm facing a very game opponent. I look forward to putting on a show or being the best version of myself. Shout out to my team, Tactical Combat Academy, and the guys down at Frederick Powertrain. Cal and Lou, they have taken me under their wing to help me with some strength training to help build on my game for this fight camp. Because I plan on, if I'm going to go pro after this, I'm trying to end my amateur career, win or lose, but I'm trying to go out and like just bring some havoc, man. Like raise hell.
Bring the war.
Out there, yeah, man. So it is what it is, man. All right. So yeah, war child out.